Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, we are on location in Ben's Merschman PowerCore Enlist 2512C-30 cornfield near Wever, Iowa. Ben shares his experience managing this field. Hear how Meristem Hopper Throttle corn was utilized. And Joe explains our seed production process and our starting line corn seed treatment.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Ben, Dylan, and Lynn, and we're actually on location just outside of Wever, Iowa, and we're in Ben's cornfield. And Ben would like to share some management that he did this year that's going to probably make you some money, Ben.
Yeah, Joe, it was awfully nice of you to let me mow this down so that we could get out here, and you're going to pay me that 400 bushel corn, right?
That's the plan.
No, this is actually just a unique experience. We have a couple highline poles that had to get put in behind us, and it kind of broke open to some areas where we have some checks versus some full Meristem program with the fungicides and the whole gamut. So when I came back here and looked at what got mowed off, I said, you know, I think this would be a good Cup of Joe episode where we can show the differences between full management versus how fast this season has really played havoc on the corn that we have that's still out in the field. So
we are literally in the middle of the cornfield due to the fact that the electric company had to mow a path through.
Yep, exactly. I'll let them pay for it. You won't have to do that.
Okay, thanks.
So a little bit of background behind this, and then Lynn and Dylan and I and Joe will talk about the kind of the specifics of what we all have going on here. This field is a strip till field. We have 260 pounds of removal put down last fall. We are in a corn on soybean rotation. It was planted on April 17th this year, so this is actually fairly early corn, and what you're looking behind us is corn that's got a lot of green left in it for that early planted corn for what I have all looked at in some of the different environments around locally and getting further out into our sales geography. So from a planting date standpoint, we got the April 16th, 17th time frame for this one. We would have had Hopper Throttle. It would have been Xyway in with the planter. We would have had Hopper Throttle corn with ether. They're one of their nice premium products for high yielding corn to get set up.
You might just say, what is Hopper Throttle? It's a planter box treatment. What's all in it?
Yep, so the planter box treatment has a whole consortium of different things in it. We have what I call nitrogen and phosphorus fixing bugs that are in one of the capsules. It has an ether enzyme which helps solubilize phosphorus. It has zinc and iron and manganese in the base of the pail, along with graphite and talc, an 80-20 graphite talc mixture. What else am I missing on there?
Terracem.
Yep, it's also got
for root growth early in the year.
Yep. So, and it's put on at the planter.
Yep.
At the time of planting.
Correct. Yep, so basically you would press these buttons, and one of the reasons why they have a patent on this pail that we've talked about many times, but the reason that they have a patent on this pail is to keep all of the bugs alive, because a lot of times certain specific bacterias will have the moisture pulled out of them when they're in mix with graphite and talc. So they have all of these individual components on top. When you would press each one of the buttons on the pail, you'd deploy those. It would go into the graphite talc mixture. You'd shake it up and you'd apply it right there at the planter. So
yeah, in our opinion, it's the only product out there that you know for sure you're getting live bugs to do the job. And again, biologicals work, but they got to be alive. And consequently, if they're mixed together with antagonistic elements, they don't live as long.
Yep, nope, you're exactly correct. And the zinc by itself is a product that potentially could pay for, the zinc that's in the base of the pail is a product if you don't have starter on your corn planter, like we do not have starter, that by itself potentially could pay for the entire cost of that pail. Then you get all these other ancillary benefits. The pail itself is a big portion. It's what I believe sets us up from the start. Dr. Fred Belo says starter is not finisher, and but to have a bigger plant system, to have a healthier plant system at this time of year, there's a lot of those components where we're starting to build on at the very beginning part of the season.
So that's step one.
So that's step one. Step two is the fact that we picked extremely high yielding genetics. We are sitting in a field of 2512C-30. It's a PowerCore number. It's one of the ones that we've talked about many times on Cup of Joe. It has unbelievable yield potential. And Lynn, why don't you talk about placement on the 2512 and where it can all fit?
You know, 2512, as we've talked about before, is one of those really unique products when we think about it from its placement in the industry. You know, sometimes hybrids can kind of be placed into buckets. We would call them like a workhorse or a racehorse, and this one is really unique when it comes to its placement. I feel like, and you guys can argue with me though, but we can place it on either position. I think it's got a great drought stress, disease package to go on marginal acres, and with that ability that it's probably one of the few products that has a true 3 flex characteristic to it, meaning that it can flex in girth, it can flex in length, or it can flex in kernel depth. So when we get a product like that, what that means is we have a lot of different management techniques that we can use. And this, you said you were at 35,000 planted over on my field, corn on corn. A little bit stressier dirt, you know, brought that back down to 33, probably somewhere around that 32 final stand, and kind of the same thing we're going to talk about today. The yield potential there is just unbelievable. So when we look at that, this is one we've talked about at 22,000. We're at the 12, a factor of 12 when looking at the bushel per, or yield per planted population. Just a completely unique product to what we're kind of get fed, I guess, as an industry. You know, when we talk about some different products, you know, it may be more of a true flex. You know, when we get into the semi-flex terminology, some of them tend to be either a little bit more true flex, and some of them tend to be a little bit more determinate, but nobody likes it. It kind of seems like nobody likes to use those terminologies anymore. Everything kind of just tends to be a semi-flex. But this one is a true 3-dimensional flex in the sense of its opportunity, and that's where the flexibility comes from.
Right. So in our testing that we have looked at, this product it works in the Mid-South, it works in the West, it works central. So when I say west, that's west of I-35. It works central, which is I-35 to the eastern border of Illinois, and then it works east as well, which takes us out into the East Coast. So north, south, east, west. It's got a great fit. It's gonna fit a lot of acres.
And we were in a field in Kearney, Nebraska, not that long ago, which is 500 miles to the west from here, and looks just as spectacular as it does right here.
Yep. And that's one that, you know, when we talk about south, their stresses tend to be heat and disease. We talk about west, out in Nebraska, their stresses tend to be hail and wind. So we have put it in our own testing. Our originators have put it into their testing. When we talk about being, you know, multifaceted in multi different locations, I mean, it is a well-traveled product to be able to get that data and that consistency across different yield environments.
Yeah, it should be one of the hybrids in your package next year. Don't plant all of it, but just should be one of the hybrids in the package. And we quite frankly think it's about 15 bushel better hybrid than most of the hybrids that are out there. So that's why we talk about it so much. That's why we're so enthusiastic about it. And that's why we want you to take a good look at it as one of the hybrids in your package of PowerCore hybrids you buy from Merschman Seeds next year.
Couldn't agree more. So next step from picking our right genetics, we're looking at going to our post pass, our herbicide post pass. And in that post pass, we would have laid down Roundup, Callisto, and atrazine in our post, but along with that we would put our early season, Revline early season. It is a PGR. It's a very, very popular PGR on the market.
Plant growth regulator.
Yep.
PGR.
And there's a couple different ways that we want to promote that plant growth, and that early season is different than what we would use late season. So one of the things about the early season Revline is that we are promoting shoot and root growth, and paired with that we have the home stretch complete. And in the home stretch complete we have stress mitigators, and what we're trying to do during that time frame, we have stress mitigators and foliars in that package, and what we're trying to do in that time frame is to make as many kernels around as possible and have that plant have all the nutrition that it could possibly need to go ahead and set as many kernels around and give us a little bit of lack of nutrient movement. So we want to make sure that that plant is happy when it's setting those kernels. It's not having to pull a ton of nutrients from the soil and reallocate them throughout the plant.
Which is typically V5, V6 time frame for most.
Yep, I really am a fan of trying to get that post pass done at V4 so that you are out of the bedroom when it comes to looking at setting up the reproductive material for that corn plant.
Yeah, and there's studies out there, and we could cite them, but it'd probably take too long to find at this point. But most I think industry experts would agree that even though our crops are, Roundup Ready resistant, I would even go with atrazine, with stuff just heating up. It has that metabolic resistance, but it still has to metabolize it, and that stress causes a lot of heartburn, for lack of better terms, in that corn crop. So that's why we want to be able to metabolize that, and when it's setting that kernels around, it's having its best day possible, rather than and I get it, it's a time thing. Like, it's, especially that time of year, if you get a little bit of heat, you look out, you're at V3, and then you come back 2 days later, it's like, suckers at V5 before you know it. But if we can get in there and get that taken care of, it's really, really important to develop that rows around. And I think that is one hidden aspect, maybe, that guys that are chasing that really high yields and are really consistent, they're getting that stress out of that kernels around and being able to get in that 16, 18, 20, and even 22 around versus, 14 or so.
Right. So all of these steps, they're in the back of the Merschman Seeds product guide. But Dylan, why don't you walk us through what happened? That time frame in this field would have been as soon as I saw the first tassel, we came over the top with a Highboy sprayer. So that would have been probably in that July 4th, 3rd, first time frame, like right as we saw first tassels pop. What's the next step?
Along to go with your fungicide that you'd be putting on in that time frame, we'd also come back with late season PGR. So that is a completely separate PGR than the early season, and then NKBS, which is a foliar package. And with that late season, that's when we want to worry about our pollination and getting that every kernel pollinated that we can. And Meristem has seen studies that even if you push that late season application ahead of tassel, they're actually getting better emergence across the board on those tassels. So as we kind of move forward, that's something that I guess I want to kind of really play along with, because if we can, you always see it seems like every year we get kind of a wave of either like unemergent, late emerging plants in the spring, or our compacted areas or something. They come up a little bit later. Seems like we get those calls every year. Well, what's going on? And if we can maybe help mitigate, that a little bit of the unevenness, I think that could go a long ways. But as we move on to that, then the foliar package, we know as we get later into the season, grain fill is very key. And so with those foliars, we're helping, so the plant doesn't have to work as hard, take it out of the stalk and out of its leaves to go into that kernel and that fill. Maybe we can give it a little bit more of that fertility through that the nitrogen soluble potash is in that mix, sulfur, and then a little bit of boron. And so then those are all key components as we're filling. We want to pack that kernel full, so I think that's also why we're seeing this.
Yeah, I think some of the health aspects comes from the NKBS pass. Yep. Because when your plant is starving for nutrition, it lets all of its defense mechanisms down, and it's pulling everything that it can to reassimilate those sugars. That's why the NKBS is a very high potassium load, and potassium's job is to move the nutrients around, and that's a little bit more difficult to do if you're under stressful situations. The last pass that this corn would have had, so I did a tassel application, and I think in many instances this year with how the disease came in, it came in fairly late. In certain areas it came in early, and it's going to be depending on where you're at and which fungicide application worked best. So we saw in Waukon, Iowa, where they had southern rust come in 2 weeks before we did here. And when I was going in at tassel application, we were 100% clean, but I wanted to get that the PGR and the NKBS put in right. So for this area, that probably would have been a little bit too early of an application to get your biggest bang for your buck. But every year is a little bit different, so you gotta manage that stress differently with your scouting, essentially. And so what I did is I came back right at what I call pre-dent, so where you just start to see the kernels, they're coming out of that full dough stage and they're turning into dent. I came back with a very inexpensive fungicide and that NKBS and Revline late season pass one more time, and as you look back behind us, I mean, the ears are absolutely beautiful. We're nice and filled out. I did some testing on this. That would have been yesterday when I was pulling ears. So an April 16th planted 2512, 112 day, I was at 33% moisture in the treated acres, and I have untreated acres here down towards the end of this area that we'll take some pictures of. But the untreated acre was like 27% versus 33%. So when you're looking at how many days it takes to fill, some industry work done by Pioneer, and the number will fluctuate based on the year and how much time you have to fill, you're looking at potentially a bushel and a quarter to a bushel and a half for every additional day that you kept that plant alive. So from 33 to 28, we're looking at a 5-day spread. You know, just in that time frame from a fill, we're going to be able to see a lot of what it takes for to pay for this full program. Plus, I think we're going to have a lot of extra test weight and yield in the applied acres. Much less standability and everything else that's going to happen, because I can see we are one windstorm away from having some problems in many, many areas of the Corn Belt.
You know, but you look at it too, you know, we're talking about like grain fill and packing that in. We were really fortunate, at least in Southeast Iowa, this past 2 weeks, week and a half has been very cool, has not had almost too cool. It seems like, you know, just to our, we have to have a sweatshirt and a coat walking around at night, you know, and that's really where we're going to get a bunch of that grain fill too. And as you go across even the road or wherever, there's not a drop of green, you know, left in any of those plants. They were shut down a long time ago. We were able to extend that life, and though it's really going to, I think, pay off.
Correct.
Yeah, Ben, and there's one other component you didn't talk about, and that would be component 0 maybe, the seed treatment that we put on our seed and our seed quality that we work on. And I'll talk just a little bit about seed quality, and I'll let you talk about the starting line seed treatment we put on. But on seed quality, we're very fortunate to work with our production company where they own all their land. They own all the land, so they plant the seed, they fertilize it, they spray it, they detassel it, they harvest it. Everything is totally under their control. And I think because of that, we get unbelievable quality. In other words, extremely high cold tests and extremely uniform seed. So anyhow, growing good seed corn production is really important, and we feel that we have that under control. And I know this year, Ben, I think you're going to do some more extensive tests, some more stress tests to even make sure that the quality is as good as it can be. I can tell you, not this year, but the year before, we had one saturated cold test that was 100%. And I've never seen that. And I talked to the production company, and they've never seen it either. But these particular hybrids are carrying a lot of vigor and a lot of stress. And I know that's not something that you want to take lightly when you like to plant early. So we take high quality seed, and then we put the seed treatment on it, the starting line.
Yep, exactly. And the starting line is extremely unique in the industry. It seems like a lot of the major seed brands that are out there don't like to spend money on their seed treatment when it comes to the corn side of their businesses. And we think that we need to have as many protections as possible that make the most sense when it comes to water molds that are in the field, like the Pythiums. We want to have dual modes of action against those. We have our Stamina fungicide that's in the mix as well. That helps us on some cold tolerance. That's definitely could be a reason why we are seeing the saturated colds as high as what we are. We have Tripidity in the mix. Tripidity is the base. I mean, you're giving, it's a biostimulant that gives that plant hormones, amino acids, and small levels of nutrition to give each cellular message inside that plant the exact same message, so that it comes out of the ground faster with more even emergence. And we can back it up every single time that we've done flag tests. We get more even emergence every single time. On top of that, we have a high quality nematicide that has 2 different modes of action for working on a multitude of different nematode species that are out there. So the seed treatment is definitely ground zero when it comes to getting us off to the races, and it's almost like a mini starter in itself. And then you throw the Meristem program on top of what we're doing, and I think the results speak for themselves, because Alex can pan around and see an area. We're coming around a telephone line right here where the sprayer missed because he was coming around. I mean, you can see it. There's eardrop not ear dropping on the ground, but the ears are definitely, the shanks are setting themselves down and the plant is working on maturing, where this, I haven't checked or broken any ears open yet, but we still may be not quite to black layer on all the kernels. So we did take advantage of Dylan's cooler weather that he was talking about.
So I know a lot of you think of Merschman Seeds as a soybean and wheat company, but we're putting the same effort and same expertise into corn as we do soybeans and wheat, because it's real simple. We don't like to lose. We like to win, and we want to create value for our customers. So we encourage you to take a look at Merschman corn in conjunction with the Meristem products to build a system that is going to give you season-long protection and a lot more yield. And won't be long, we're going to find out what this field yields. And Ben, I think it's going to do okay.
I think we'll be okay too.
Yep.
Perfect. I think that's an awesome place to get us out of here, Joe.
Okay. Well, I had to get my jokes out today, and I told him, I said, well, if we don't have a lot of content, I could really come up with a lot of really bad jokes, but I'm not going to do that to you. But I would like to read a few of them that I came across here, and I think you'll enjoy it. Now, one of the things that you may find interesting, those of you in ag, you know, they think that, you see the 4x4 on the pickups, and you hear what people in town say that means farmers work 4 weeks in the spring and 4 weeks in the fall and 44 weeks to do nothing. Well, they kind of think of it that way with us as seedsmen too. I've actually had people in town say, what do you guys do all winter? Okay. And I said, well, we play cards. And then, about April 1st, we start, cleaning our seed and shipping it. Well, the reality of it is, we start in September and we don't get done till July. So this first joke reminded me of answering that question from a city person that has no clue about agriculture and how it's a non-stop job. It's actually almost 7 days a week, 24 hours a day at some times. So the joke goes, our computers went down at work today, so we had to do everything manually. It took me 20 minutes to shuffle the cards for solitaire instead of playing it on the computer. Now the other thing too is, everybody's going green, and I'm not against green or anything, but we tried that to go paperless in our office. Everything went great until I needed to use the bathroom. And another thing, everybody's always looking for that perfect mate, And I used to run a dating service for chickens. I don't know if you knew that. But it was a struggle to make hens meet. Okay? All right. One last thing, and this will relate more to the slightly older crowd, okay? If you're feeling depressed, try drinking a gallon of water before you go to sleep. It'll give you a reason to get out of bed in the morning. All right. Well, thanks for watching today, and thanks, Ben, for inviting us out into your field. It looks very impressive, and I'm glad you practice what you preach, you know what I'm saying? But anyhow, we hope that your family is healthy and safe. We'll see you next week. Take care.